Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to invite our distinguished speaker, who's the Dr. Hai Hong Noon. Again, Dr. Hai holds a PhD in political science, and his research focuses on democratization, democratic theory, and local government and democracy, state-society relations, and the impact of social media on political transformation, international relations. Well, Dr. Hai, and welcome back to The Missing Piece.
My pleasure.
Dr. Hai, I want to get started with this breaking news. Again, according to the media, that Vietnam's government has announced the resignation of the second president in many years amid anti-corruption drive. And again, such resignation sparked this political instability in the country. From your perspective, can you help us with better understanding what is happening to the country today in Vietnam, and how much can we expect regarding the impact after the current president, or should we say the former president, that resigned from the post? Your thoughts?
Well, thank you very much. I think the question is also the concern for the international community and also for the investors. As everyone knows, that on the 20th of March, the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam held an extraordinary meeting to consider, and of course, finally they accepted the resignation by President Van Thuong. And of course, he also had to resign from the Politburo and also from the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam. So given that the position state president is elected by the parliament or the National Assembly, so that's why the next day the National Assembly also held an extraordinary meeting to approve the resignation of Mr. Thuong and remove him from the presidency. So, according to the state media announcement released by the office of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam, Mr. Thuong violated the party's rules, and of course he had to take responsibility as the leader. So that is what we have known so far from the state media. And of course, there have been a lot of rumors around Thuong resignation. That includes his connection with the corruption scandal, and a connection with one of the company involved in the instruction industry, and this company has given a lot of bribe to even relatives of Mr. Thuong. So we don't know whether Mr. Thuong was directly linked to those corruption scandal or cases, but yeah, that's on the rumor on social media. Now, of course, in the countries like Vietnam, where the media managed and controlled by the state, is hard to know, the specific and the exact reason for that. And I think, now, so that's why we can only understand that Thuong resigned because he was fully aware of his responsibility as the leader, And that is something also happened to his predecessor, the former president Wilson Phúc in 2023. So, and of course, as the president, as a member of the Politburo, and the member of the Central Committee, of course, he has to take responsibility, and he has to set example of leaders of the country, and that's why the party dismissed him because the party considers that he already violated the party's rules. Now, in terms of the impact, I don't think there is any major impact on Vietnam, and any major changes in Vietnam foreign policy or the foreign relations of Vietnam, because if you look at Vietnamese political culture, Vietnam, the Communist Party rules the country based on collective leadership rather than based on individual power. It's unlike Xi Jinping in China. So if with term resignation, I don't think and I don't see any impact. And we know that at the time when Thương resigned from his position, there was a delegation of 50 American companies visiting Vietnam and exploring trade and investment opportunities in Vietnam. And on the other hand, there was also a big delegation from the resident to Vietnam also. And of course, Vietnamese leaders also welcomed and hosted visits by foreign leaders too. So having said that, I don't think there is any major impact on the policy, foreign relations, and I don't see any hint of political instability in Vietnam.
Dr. Hai, again, I want to go back to the statement that put out again throughout the media, but meanwhile, I want to ask the question related to what we call this anti-corruption drive. I mean, again, when we talk about this anti-corruption, for example, countries in Southeast Asia are not strangers to anti-corruption campaign. We've seen the Philippines, we've seen Cambodia, Bangladesh, many countries. But I think, Dr. Hai, seldom that we understand this details regarding this anti-corruption drive happening in Vietnam. And of course, based on the state media, and it says anti-corruption drive, it's not slowing down. It is increasingly unclear what the endpoint may be, clouding the near-term future of a country previously known for state and state politics. So again, help us briefly to understand what is the purpose of the whole anti-corruption campaign or drive right now, and how critical it is for Vietnam or even the world to understand the position? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think first of all, we have to understand the real purpose of the anti-corruption campaign launched by the Vietnamese Communist Party of Vietnam, right? So back in 1994, just 10 years, almost 10 years after Vietnam launched Đổi mới, or economic reforms, the Communist Party of Vietnam already identified corruption as one of the threats to the survival of and the legitimacy of the Communist Party of Vietnam. So back to even 1994, the party already identified corruption, right, as a threat already, along with other threats, including hostile forces and social evils. So, having said that, corruption is not some anti-corruption or fighting against corruption is not something now, or is not something that the party is using it now in order to, as some people say, to struggle for power. So overall, the party consider corruption is a social malaise and a social evil that really threatens the survival and the party and the rules and the legitimacy of the party. So, but since even it identified corruption back in 1994 as such, but for long times, corruption was still rampant in Vietnamese society, right? Particularly in the 1990s, corruption was everywhere. And it happens in all corners of the society. So even the current Secretary General of the Communist Party of Vietnam, Nguyễn Phú Trọng, said corruption is something like an itches, right? So you can touch anywhere on the body and you can feel it. So it's so rampant that everyone knows that corruption is really a social evil. So that's why back in 2012, when Secretary General Nguyễn Phú Trọng first came into office as the Secretary General of the Communist Party of Vietnam, he took over the positions as the head of the Anti-Corruption Committee. So since 2012, and more particularly from 2016, with what people have called or popularly referred to as a blazing furnace, the nut law, right? So it means that the party really want to clean the party, right? Clean the corrupt elements within the party in order to strengthen the capacity, strengthen the powers of the party, and more importantly, they just want to gain trust from the public, and of course to consolidate, to budget the legitimacy of the party. So So we first of all we have to understand there is a real need within the parties that they need to fight. They need to eliminate the corruption, because if we look at cases, examples around the world, many regimes, particularly authoritarian regimes, collapsed due to corruption, right? So that's why I think this is a very smart, a very wise approach. And in this sense, I think we need to recognize the Communist Party of Vietnam's, policy or approach for being, able to identify, to recognize that corruption is a real threat to the survival of the regime and the legitimacy of the party. Now, when the anti-corruption campaign expanded, and of course, when it touched on high-ranking officer in the context of election, in the context of the party congress, etc., then many people associate the anti-corruption campaign with fighting within the party for power. And I think, yes, it's really up to the people to, interpret it. But of course, I think in a society in Vietnam where the media and, owned the price managed and controlled by the party and the governments. So whatever we have, whatever information we have is really based on rumor, based on what imparted or disseminated on social media. But when we, criticize someone, when we just want to, um, um, uh, you know, defend our argument, we need evidence. So rather than based on what's floating, what's disseminated on social media. So I'm not saying that those people based on that kind of rumor or based on the what disseminated on social media are wrong or excessively misjudged. But what I'm saying is that we really need a solid evidence. We need really a solid proof in order to support what we say, rather than we just give our prediction based on the rumor. So for me, what I'm saying, I'm looking the anti-corruption campaign from a very positive perspective and approach. And why many people link it with infighting for power, I would say that, well, it is a sign of democratization. Why not? Because, look at the, what happening in Vietnam. So many high-ranking officers have been arrested, disciplined, even dismissed from the party. Is that really a sign of democratization? Is it really a sign of, democratic development? It is really a positive side of political development in Vietnam, given the fact that in Vietnam Vietnam has only one party in power, right? So if we look at other political cultures or environment like China's, like North Korea, Cuba, Laos, or many others, I think the anti-corruption campaign in Vietnam is more advanced than in those countries, right? So if no state president in those countries has been dismissed, right, or disciplined, but Vietnam has done so. So why not we consider it as a positive political development?
Well, Dr. Hai, again, I want to briefly ask you the last question. Now, the news came out, U.S. officials is set to visit some of the countries in Southeast Asia very soon, and particularly related to the Philippines and countries in Southeast Asia, other region as well. Now, some believe that today, countries like Vietnam and the Philippines intend to grow distance away from the U.S., given the fact that tension between U.S. and China is escalating on a daily basis. But some believe that countries like Vietnam, it's standing at the crossroads. So I want to hear your final thoughts. Do you think that today, U.S. is strategically playing the card wisely when it comes to countries in Southeast Asia? Or should Vietnam be concerned or continue to be concerned regarding the tension between U.S. and China? Your final thoughts.
Yeah, I think, of course, no countries in Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, want to see a war between China and the United States. And of course, any conflict between China and the United States is not good for not only the region but also for the world. But of course, we have to accept the fact, because in our real life, very often competition is the fact, right? We have to accept the fact, and of course, not given the fact that China also have its ambitious policy, or its ambitions to become a superpower, and of course to rule the world in its own way. Look at what they're doing in the South China Sea. So I think competition or the rivalry between one emerging power and already exist or established power, I think that's the fact, and we have to accept that. But of course, again, as I said, no countries in the regions want to see, because at the end of the day, it will affect the countries in the region anyway. more or less, because in the world today, all countries are interconnected, and also relying on each other, right? Particularly if we look at the trade relationship between China's and ASEAN country, right? So we can see that. And if anything happened, or any conflicts happened, of course, it will seriously impact or affect the developments of the countries, including Vietnam. And I think, I think given China is, aggressively and assertively, strengthening its muscle in the South China Sea, and of course, it is, is claims over the sovereignty in the South China Sea, regardless the international law, is really, a big concern for countries in Southeast Asia, and that's why, of course, Southeast Asian countries really want to, get the support from the major power in order for them to, at least to defend, to protect itself from China's aggressive action. And of course, in that context, Southeast Asian countries, including Vietnam, want to see, major power, not only the United States, but also other powers in the world, including Japan, including India, European Union, etc., so Australia, to contributes to the peace development in and order establishments and maintenance within the regions. I think China's and or the United States, of course, they need to ask themselves whether what they're doing in order to cultivate the concerns in regional countries, smaller countries in the regions. So I think as a major power, they must take responsibility for what they're doing, because they have the responsibility, first of all, to maintain order, to follow the rules, to follow international law, etc. So they have to set example for smaller countries. Of course, smaller countries can't, take aggressive action against the bigger one. Only the bigger one in this world, right? Only the bigger one can bully and also, take aggressive action against smaller countries. So I think it is very important that China need to ask themselves first why what they're doing in order for smaller countries, their neighboring countries, to look for help from someone else, assistance from someone else, in order to defend, to protect their interest. So that is important. And of course, again, countries in the region welcomes any contributions from anyone in the world that help them to protect, defend their interest, and of course maintain peace and order within the region.
Thank you, Dr. Hai. Well, Dr. Hai Hong-Noon, it's a political scientist. Again, I strongly encourage everyone go on social media, online, connect with Dr. Hai, and follow his publications and regarding international relationships. Well, Dr. Hai, thank you so much for your time. We'd love to have you back on the show for our future episodes. Thank you so much for doing this.